All right, so that's the first game.
Yeah.
Why don't we go through the second game that's also happening on Saturday, Garen?
Correct. That's an all-Australian derby, if you like. Kicks off at 11:40 South African time. We've got the Waratahs, who topped the log, against the Brumbies, who were last year's losing finalists. So a lot to play for, in the all-Australian match. They're playing for Wallaby spots in upcoming rugby championships. And I was saying to Rob earlier as well, if one team's going to beat the Waratahs, I think it's going to be an Australian team. So obviously the Brumbies in this case. If it was a South African team or a New Zealand team taking on the Waratahs, I'd have no hesitation in giving the victory to the Waratahs. But the Brumbies, they do have something special there in their team. They've got some really, really key players, obviously building on last year's tournament where Jake White was in charge and they lost in the final. They're building nicely towards to the playoffs. They're running into some good form of late. So again, it's going to come down to one or two kicks here, perhaps a few referee decisions. So I'm going to give the advantage to the Waratahs simply because they're at home again. But I think in both these semi-finals we need to remember that there are no bonus points on offer. It doesn't matter if you score 4 tries. It doesn't matter if you lose by 7 points and pick up a bonus point. It's really just about winning and reaching the final. So if you want to win ugly, if you like, that's the way to go. So a lot like the Sharks, they're just going to kick their penalties. They don't need to score tries. They just need to keep the opposition out. And I think the Waratahs are going to do something similar. They've scored some fantastic tries this season. Israel Folau, by some distance, the leading try scorer in the whole tournament, playing at fullback for the Waratahs. They don't really need him to play the adventurous X-Factor type rugby that he does. He just needs to make sure he's solid on defence, and they need their Flower, Bernard Foley, to kick the penalties and get them into the final. And if they reach the final, then they will host the final. So that's another aspect to this game. If the Waratahs have a lot to play for, they've got the semi-final at home and a final if they make it. So I'm going to give the advantage to them, but only by 2 points.
Rob?
Jenna, I'm going to go Waratahs by 8. I think that the Brumbies are capable of running them close. I think we saw enough evidence from not too long ago when the sides played each other in ordinary season in Sydney. I think it was 39-8 to the Waratahs, and they really gave the Brumbies a rugby lesson that day. So that kind of tells you what the Brumbies are up against. On form, there's no question, as Garen says, the Brumbies have got plenty of X-factor in their ranks. And if their pack, I think the key is if their pack stands up to the really heavyweight Waratahs 8, then they will be in with a shout. They did knock over the Waratahs in Canberra in the also much earlier in the ordinary season phase. I think it was something like 28-23. So a close game, but that'll give them some hope. They will believe that they can go to Sydney. It's not a huge journey for them. Where, of course, the Sharks have had to travel 1 million miles to get to Christchurch. The Brumbies sort of go up the road, as it were, for a 3-hour drive to Sydney. So it's an away match, yes, and it will favour the Waratahs, but it's sort of insurmountable obstacle for the Brumbies to go to Sydney and sort of spoil the hometown party, if you like. But I think when all is said and done, I've got to go Waratahs. I just think that there's enough mongrel and beef in that Waratahs pack to do the business by, as I said, about 8 points.